we've had a lot of different content recently, and so we've talked about insurance cancellations, non-renewals, and inspections, tax strategies for real estate investors, 10 ways to keep residents happy. These are all things that you can find if you go to the YouTube channel that we have at aoausa.com, or I'm sorry, just AOA USA. If you search that on YouTube, it'll bring it up. And if you're a new member, there's a membership, like a member orientation that you can look at there, and it'll show you kind of how to utilize all the different resources that we have, because there's a lot of different things. And yeah, so if you haven't subscribed, now's a great time to hit the subscribe button and toggle that bell over. Sometimes we release things that are not live streams and are not on the calendar at all, so you may want to toggle that over. And yeah, so we're just want to give a shout out to Renovise today. They streamlined the construction process. I remember they had three or four different companies come and bid on a job that I was having done, and so that was nice to have somebody just organize all that, and in one day, boom, all that was done. And so Renovise is sponsoring this event today right here. And but anyway, we're going to get the show rolling, and we have Mr. ADU who's with us. He's the founder of ADU Gold, and he's done over 1,000 fix and flip or buy and holds, and just been in the business for what, 35, 34 years now?
Yep, that's right.
So for a long time. And so everybody, I want to introduce you to Seth Phillips. And anyway, Seth, go ahead and share with us.
Well, thank you so much, Jeff. I really appreciate it. Always appreciate being in the AOA events. Well done. Love this company, and I've been so happy to get to know the customers that are part of the AOA membership, and really learning and understanding the challenges and the opportunities that they're looking at. And that's what I'm here to talk about today, is opportunities, because this is where things have changed so dramatically over the course of the last 7 years. And very, very few people really understand what these new opportunities mean in the real world. And the wonderful news is that the best of these new opportunities are exactly aimed at you, the multifamily owner. So I'm excited to talk about it. Just a real quick background on me. I'm originally from Minnesota, you betcha. And you'll still hear a little bit of that in my talking as I speak. But I've lived in the Los Angeles area now for over 38 years. And I've been a licensed real estate agent and broker for 35 years. And I loved being in that job and that profession. Everything was going great until all of a sudden in 2007, something happened. The market crashed, and like literally overnight, I went from having this great job that I loved, that I made good money at, to being unemployed. So I went into the house flipping business because that was something I could do at the time. And these numbers sound so crazy, and it really wasn't that long ago. We were buying foreclosure homes on the courthouse steps in Los Angeles for $120,000. Fixing them up and then selling them for $190,000. Well, anybody that's been in the flipping business at all understands that between the fix-up cost, the buying cost, the selling cost, the holding cost, there isn't much meat on that bone at the end of the day. So we had to learn another skill set, and that was how to manage multiple projects at the same time, which we did. So then we were typically doing about 12 properties at the same time. And then as the market slowly began to heal, we just started to move up into more and more affluent neighborhoods until we got all the way to the top of that food chain, where we were in the ultra luxury market doing ground up new construction in Beverly Hills, Bel Air, Hollywood Hills. And those homes weren't selling for $190,000. They were selling for $10 million and up. So that also required another learning curve, because those projects are so complicated that from the time you start to to the time you can bring it to the market is a minimum of 2 years. Well, everybody in real estate knows one thing, and that is the real estate moves in cycles. Sometimes it's moving up, but sometimes it's moving down. And if you're a spec builder, which is what we were investing millions of dollars in the dirt, millions of dollars in the construction, hoping that 2 years in the future, we would be rewarded for all that. Well, of course, that isn't always necessarily going to be true. And we had been in an upward appreciating market for some time. So we decided to kind of keep doing what we were doing, but to scale it back into a smaller project with less money at risk that we could also do quicker. So we bought a basically tear down fixer house in Culver City with the intention of fixing that, or just tearing it down and then building the biggest 2-story modern box on it. And can we do the slideshow? I want to show a picture of that. It's coming.
There.
Okay, go to the next slide. And there we go. And so instead of tearing that house down, we decided to build, because we had just heard about this new ADU thing. And I was so immediately impressed with this concept that I was able to convince my partner to switch gears. Instead of knocking the house down, instead we just beautifully remodeled it. And then in the backyard, we built the very first 2-story with rooftop deck luxury ADU in the city of Los Angeles, and it worked. As you can see, we bought that property for $735,000, and we sold that property for $1,805,000. So it worked, and through that process, I just decided that I was going out of the spec building business and full-time into the ADU construction services business, which is where I am today. But I learned one very, very important lesson right off the bat, and this is something everybody wants to know and should know. How much value does an ADU actually add to your property? The answer to that, I believe, is actually very simple. Whatever your property is worth per square foot in that location, that's the value added by building an ADU per square foot in that same location. And this is where this formula gets wonderful, specifically because we are in California, and even more specifically if you're in the Los Angeles area. The median price per square foot now for sold properties is over $600 per square foot. That's excellent, because when you're developing, of course, the one major expense is, well, how much does it cost to build it? Well, in Los Angeles right now, it's expensive to build, but it's expensive to build everywhere. In California, our building costs are a little bit higher, not that much higher, but they are a little bit higher. So just to give you an idea, right now, you're probably looking at, for all-in construction cost, is going to be somewhere in the $320 per square foot range. But that's everything. That's the architectural, the engineering, the expediting. That's the person that actually takes those completed plans through the permitting process with the city. That's a very complicated job, and it takes quite some time to do. And then once you finally get those plans, of course, you have to pay the permit fees, which in Los Angeles and California are not small number. And then finally you get to the contractor. Well, all those parts have to be paid. There's no optional parts in there. So they're all part of that cost per square foot. And $320 is a lot. But now let's go back to my example. In LA, the median price per square foot is over $600 per square foot. So based on that, you're basically doubling virtually your money in your investment, because the other part of any investment development deal is the cost of the land. Well, now because of these new laws, the government, with the stroke of a pen, gave you an opportunity to build these new units on free land. Well, how can it be free? Well, it's free because you already own that land, but there's more you can put on that land now. And this is so important, particularly for the multifamily owners, because I've gotten to know them really well. And most multifamily owners do follow the golden rule of investing. And it's so simple. Buy, don't sell. And if you can do that, you end up with the biggest pile of money at the end of the day. It's just always been true. It always will be true. But a lot of owners right now that I talk to would like to acquire more property, but with the rates of the financing and the costs of the properties, the numbers are just very tight and just not very attractive. So a lot of them have kind of they're like waiting for something to happen to make that better. Well, you don't have to wait anymore. You can start adding to your portfolio right now, because if you've got any space to work with on any of your existing properties, you could be having income producing units constructed on that land right now. And this is such a huge opportunity. And there's more, because the newest laws that just went into effect literally in July this year under SB 684, this specifically applies to multifamily properties. You are now potentially can put up to 10 units on your property. 10. And each one of those, if you're in the city of Los Angeles, can have a duplex. So 10 now becomes 20. 20 legal rentable units. But there's more. Each one of those units, and this is 10, so it can't be, the ADUs can't be sold separately, but you can sell the duplexes separately. Each one of those can be on its own legal subdivided lot. So you can sell those units individually. And there's just a kind of like a universal rule of real estate in general, and that is if you build, for instance, a 10-unit apartment building, well, when you go to sell it, you're going to sell it based on the market for a 10-unit apartment building and in that neighborhood. And that's the number. But if you take that exact same construction and you sell those 10 units individually, you will always sell it for more. And typically, statistically, that's going to be in the 15 to 20% more for the exact same construction. Plus, it gives you an opportunity of selling some of it, but not all of it, and continuing to hold it in your portfolio. And they've done a really cool thing is that, and this just happened, is they clarified, for instance, you've got a duplex right now, and you've got a bunch of open space in back that's parking or yard. Maybe you have a detached parking structure on the back. You can basically subdivide this property, keep your existing duplex on its own separate lot, and still build potentially 10 more units on that remaining land. It's that lot that your original units are on is what's going to be called a remainder lot, but it will be a completely legal separate lot with a duplex on it, and then you can have all these other potential units on it. I mean, this is just crazy. The density that you could add to your property, because also remember, almost all multifamily at minimum is 2-story and typically 3-story. So you can stack, you can create vertical units. So we've already designed a product, and can you go roll through the slide again real quick? And once again, we're working with Renovise here, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. They can help you with the most important part of this process is who is going to be your design build company. And that's another discussion, but we'll roll to another side real quick. Keep going, sorry. And we'll go back to that. One more. One more. One more. There we go. Okay, so this is an example of a vertical product that you could build. 3 stories, and each one of these units is a duplex. So on the bottom level, you'll have the entry and a stairs that goes up to the main unit, which will be the 2 floors above it. And then on that bottom level will also be an ADU, which will be the second unit of the duplex. And here's a really extra special part of this. Already in the world of financing, it's been known for a long time that this is called what they call a house hack. For young buyers to get in the market, they could buy a duplex, and that way they could live in one unit and rent the other unit out, and it would help pay for their first house. Well, that's true a lot of times, but this new product is specifically ideal for this strategy. And the cool part is the lenders will use the projected rent of the ADU. And whatever that rent amount is, they will add that to that buyer's qualifying for the loan, which will give the buyer incredibly higher buying power. And that is so big because the entry level of a home in Los Angeles, for instance, again, is over $1 million now. What percentage of young buyers can afford to buy a $1 million home? Very few. So this is really going to be important because it's going to allow a lot more young buyers to get into the game. And whether they rent out the ADU or not, most of them probably will, because then that will help to pay for their property. So socially it's good, monetarily it's a home run, the density is incredible, and these are all new opportunities that potentially can apply to you, Mr. Multifamily owner. And I'm just excited to talk about it. So real quickly, I'm going to switch over to Renovise. So back up a couple slides again. I'm so sorry. We didn't have that in the right order. But once you want to do this, then you're going to want to hire the right people to do it, correct? Well, in the contracting world, this is a real area that you need to be legitimately concerned about, because there is just a proliferation of contractors out there, and they typically all follow kind of the same kind of mentality, is that once they get going, they will never say no to another contract. Which means is that when business is going well, they're going to have more work than they actually have resources to correctly take care of. And of course, they're not going to tell you that in front. So picking the right contractor team, and I suggest always, if possible, do it with a complete design build team, because having that connection between the architect and the engineer and the expediting and the actual contracting, having that all together under one house is important, because it makes things more efficient and it also reduces the cost. So Renovise is brilliant. They've pre-vetted vendors out there. They've pre-vetted all the contractors, verified everything, and then you hire Renovise at no cost to you to actually shop this for you. So they're going to bring out 3 or more contractors, depending on your location, to all bid on your job. And then they will not only bid on it, but then give you, of course, their timelines on it and their scope of work and all these different things. And then you'll be able to correctly analyze them side by side so that you're picking the best resource to get that work done. And that is so crucial. And I'm really excited to work with Renovise. And Keenan Knight is the owner of that company, and he is just such a good guy. And you'll probably be speaking to him directly when you contact them. So roll the slide to the head, the QR code. And they're offering out right now a virtual feasibility consultation. So they actually will get online with you, discuss your project with you. And right now they're offering that at no cost, no obligation. So just scan that QR code and you can reach out to them, schedule a call with them, and get that ball rolling. And it's a really great team to work with that I believe in, and that's why I'm here with them today talking to you about it. But there's so much opportunity out there right now because of all the new state laws, and it's just turned into alphabet soup. There's so many of them now. It's super, super confusing. That's why it's really important to talk to somebody that knows what these laws mean, how they might specifically apply to your property in your location, so that you're going to have a lot of options, a lot of different strategies that you could use on the property. So figuring out what's the best one is really, really important, and I think that you should get on that as soon as possible. So I think we're kind of close to our end here, and we've got time for some questions. So if anybody's got anything, we got a few minutes to do that, so fire away.
Did you say that was SB 684, where you could put 10 units?
Correct.
And then that's really 10 duplexes, so 20?
Yes.
What kind of property is that in Los Angeles?
Well, what I would recommend is, like I said, to get the most out of it is to go vertical, so build a 3-story product, and there is a minimum required amount of square footage of land, but this is once again where the state, they really went for it. I mean, I can't believe they actually got this through, that they had the guts to do it. You only are required of having 600 square feet of land per unit.
Oh, so thus the 6,500 square foot picture.
Right. So
yeah.
you know, you technically you would potentially only need as little as maybe 7,000 square feet, because we still have some minimum setback things that we have to do, but the density is incredible. I mean, we were talking about on standard LA size lots from 6,000 to 8,000 square feet, having somewhere between maybe 12 to 19,000 square feet of construction and rentable square footage.
Right. And when you say LA, is that LA City or LA County? Could you specify that?
Their rules are very similar between city and county, but these are state laws. So the opportunity will exist everywhere. Of course, having the state law be the state law and then going in and applying for a permit to build something at a local city building and safety or planning department, that can be a completely different story, because their bureaucracy and their politics are going to be on display. As for instance, there's a lot of communities right now, Huntington Beach continues to fight even just the ADU law. So it's not super easy in some areas, but other areas have embraced it and understand that we truly do have a housing shortage, and the only cure for that is to build more. And the only way to build more, because in cities, there's not like a whole bunch of vacant land to work with, so we have to increase the density. And that's what these new laws have done.
Great. So Amy, thank you for that question that you posted there. So if you have a question, we'll take a minute here to bring that to Seth. And he's been doing this for a while, so he's really going to be able to answer your question well. There's the blue help bubble at the bottom right side of AOAUSA.com, where you can put it in, or just on YouTube, whatever. You could type your question in and they'll get that over to us. And yeah, so I see here, Jeff, can you talk about funding lenders for these types of projects?
Yeah, well, that's obviously a very important thing, because this stuff does cost money, but very fortunately, the lenders have now really started to wrap their heads around the whole ADU concept. So they're at all levels, conventional through the hard money options are available. The hard money options are probably the easiest Actually, the easiest, of course, would just be to do a HELOC, because then you're just unlocking the equity in your home through your bank. The rates are going to be at pretty much standard bank rates, maybe 1% higher, but very standardized. And how you pay it back is completely also very flexible. But the private money that's out there, they're really the best at this, because they're really, really good at computing future value. And when you're building, that's what you're talking about. What is it going to be worth after I build it? And they're really good at that, and they're offering amazing leverage on it. And even those guys, weirdly, as the conventional rates have gone up, the private money rates have actually gone down a little bit. So it's an even better opportunity, and they're fast. So there's lots of financing available for this now, basically primarily predicated by equity that you have in property.
Great. All right. And so did you have a recommendation? So you kind of said, man, anybody will do it at this point. Do you have a recommendation? Jeff is asking.
Yeah, I have a couple lenders that I'd be more than happy to recommend to you. Reach out to me. I have my cell phone number out there for anybody to use. It's 213-784-4447, and you can put the last slide up. That's got my contact information, I'm pretty sure. But there are plenty of lenders, but it really is important also in the lending world to pick the right people, because it can either be very intensive and slow, or it can be a little less intensive and much faster. So, and that all depends on the people that are pushing that paper and how much they understand these opportunities. So that's really important when you're bringing in some of these new state law opportunities. It's important to work with people that already have some knowledge about it, so they can wrap their programs around it that fit.
Great. And then Nicole has a question. Does ADU Gold and Renovise work in San Diego County, and specifically in Vista?
Yes, Renovise definitely can help you in San Diego, and I can too. I'm physically obviously not going to be in San Diego, but I've been doing this since the first laws came out, and I know all of the different ADU specialists in the business now. Matter of fact, I'm speaking at the biggest ADU conference ever. That's going to be actually in San Diego next month. And so there are lots of resources out there for it. And I know a lot of the people, and I'd be more than happy to share some referrals with you anytime.
All right. El Whiskey. Will there be a recording of this? Yes, there will be. It's on YouTube. Just search AOA USA, and they'll be able to get that in. And then this other question that we have, which, Nicole, it's a really good question about what are the rent control implications. So whether you're in the city of LA or more generally, let's kind of even keep it easier. What about statewide rent control? Does the new unit fall under that?
Yeah, and that's one area where this is actually a big plus, because every local jurisdiction has their own rent control thing, and there's state rent control, but they virtually all share one thing. They differentiate between new and older. They have different cutoff lines of what's old or not, but obviously, when you're building this, it's new. So it is going to have whatever the rent control applies to new construction, which is always less stringent than the older stock, because they're new renters and they're not subject to the same kind of concerns that the other existing housing stock is. So it's another reason why building new as opposed to buying an older building, which will be under the more robust rent control laws, is another plus.
Right, and so Mike is asking about Santa Cruz County. Same question, probably same answer applies to Santa Cruz?
Yeah, absolutely. That's really the wonderful thing about is these opportunities are statewide. And, for the areas that might be outside of my direct personal area, we've got resources, and the same thing with Renovise. He's got a vast network of contractors and design build companies for you to work with that will fit your location. And that really is important, because you might be able to talk a contractor into coming into your job site, even if it's a long way from where they are. I just recommend against that, because the more travel time that's involved in that, just the more problems that's going to create, particularly in the timeline.
And have you seen anything about people in Altadena building ADUs?
Yes, and I had the pleasure to be able to, it was painful, but I got to meet with some homeowners groups there after the fires, and so many of them, the great majority of them, were absolutely going to rebuild. And it only kind of makes sense that if there was ever a point in time to think about it, that would be it, because you're starting with a blank slate. So that idea, if you're already going to be building, additionally building an ADU, which will create more value, but also, most importantly, if you're going to rent it, create some additional revenue for you in the go forward, is a huge deal. And unfortunately, you probably just read that the mayor just put the kibosh on SB 9, which is for 4-unit developments. It's one of the other laws that happened in the Palisades area. So believe me, the NIMBYs have not gone away, and this is so funny to me, the NIMBYs, not in my backyard, they all agree basically with the idea that yes, we have a housing shortage, yes, we should build more, just not wherever I am. Unfortunately, obviously, that doesn't work, because if everybody thought that way, then there would be nowhere to build. So the state has really taken these actions because they understand the importance of it for the health of our communities and for our state, because cities have to grow. They have to grow to prosper. And, we kind of invented the whole suburbia model. As LA grew, it was easy. Just keep going further and further out. Well, now we have people that are commuting up to 4 hours a day from Lancaster to their job south of downtown. That's that's unworkable. That is just absolutely horrible. It's horrible for the environment. The freeways, what we got to build, the stress people have to go through, being in their traffic for 4 hours a day, that's just not a way for humans to live. So we can't just keep going that way. We have to find a way to add density within our cities, but we still want to, of course, have a respect for single-family neighborhoods. So that's why they invented this soft density, where we can build things that are going to be more in harmony with the existing housing stock that's already there. And it's been done before. Mm-hmm. I mean, when we built cities, LA's a perfect example. The zoning requirements were just a lot more pliant. So a lot of neighborhoods were built, mostly single family, but on almost every block or every other block, they were dotted with anywhere from a 2 to 4 unit building, a little garden complex. The whole series, Melrose Place, was built on that. That didn't destroy the neighborhoods, it strengthened the neighborhoods. Number one, the most obvious thing is you have more eyes on the streets. More eyes means potentially more safety. So it's not about buildings, it's about people. And we can build more density into existing neighborhoods and not destroy them, but actually make them better. Mm-hmm. So I'm really excited to be part of all of this new movement.
Yeah, I like the idea that people who watch this video now can see potential in their own property, right, and also see value in properties that they may be looking at purchasing. So I hope this idea gives you kind of unlocks some things for you and helps you make or keep more money than ever before, just like that is AOA's goal all the way in everything we do. Okay, Nicole's got another question. Let's see what we have here. Can abandoned or underutilized shopping centers have a gazillion ADUs built on them rather than to add outrageous density in single-family residential areas? So what about those abandoned shopping centers?
Yeah, a lot of these new laws apply to commercial zoning. Most commercial zoning does allow residential uses already. So a lot of these are happening in those things, and we are seeing office conversions, we're seeing commercial conversions into more density, and those are excellent tools, and those are being incentivized, and they're even further being incentivized to get even more density if they agree to build deed-restricted low-income units on them. So the government's got the right ideas here, and hopefully they're just going to continue to have more and more success stories to prove it out. This is still pretty new, and there's still a lot of resistance. You know, just in general, people like, it's always been this way and I want it to keep that way. Well, that's great, but that isn't necessarily even what's best for them. You don't really know until you try new stuff whether it's going to be better or not. So I get it, and I am sensitive to these issues, and I don't want to just create massive structures destroying single-family neighborhoods. But these are much smaller. In general, we're talking about the great majority of our businesses, 2, 3, maybe ADUs that you wouldn't even know were there, literally. You wouldn't be able to know they were there unless you walked in back of an existing property to see there was something there now that wasn't there before. So we can add more and do it softly and make a difference because we need more housing.
All right, it looks like we have a question from Daniel as well. And like Nicole said, there needs to be mindful development.
Yes.
City planning and also the city, and the state, there needs to be focus on infrastructure, more development for sure. Daniel has, will owners need to provide parking for large ADU projects or even charging spots for EV cars?
There's a lot of the incentives in building these new units is taking into consideration the parking. Because if you had to add the standardized parking that is required on most new construction now, there wouldn't be room. We're trying to take advantage of underutilized space. And it's really important to understand that this whole parking issue is way more nuanced than a lot of people think. Number one, the whole idea of cars is changing. I talk to more and more multifamily owners that their new young tenants don't even own cars. This is becoming more and more common. I remember growing up that a rite of passage was the day you turned 18 or whatever the age was in your state, you were at DMV getting your driver's license. The day that you were eligible. That was the first thing. That was an important milestone. You can now drive a car because that equated to freedom for you. Well, that doesn't happen anymore. Those people don't necessarily rush out first thing to get their driver's license because now there's other options. When you want to go somewhere, you just push a button on your phone and a car magically appears to take you wherever you want. Now, there are many areas in LA where that car pulls up and there's nobody driving it. A computer's driving it. So there's just going to be less and less need for people to own their own car. It's not going to change traffic dramatically. People still have to go places, but how you do that is changing. If you don't have to own a car and you can just push a button, a car appears and takes you to where you want to go, why isn't it important to own the car? It's not nearly as important anymore as it used to be, and that is just going to become more and more common. So there'll be less cars parked. There'll be the same number of cars driving, less cars parked. So there'll be less need for parking. And right now we have an amazing overage amount of land for parking that most of the time sits there doing nothing. So that is all part of the new age, and that is why they do not require parking as long as developments are within a half a mile of a mass transit stop, which is typically qualifies as a bus stop. And that's most addresses in most cities are within a half a mile of a bus stop right now. We've really got amazing mass transit systems already in place.
So really that one can open up a real can of worms as far as owning vehicles and what everybody's getting into, and the NIMBY thing is, I know that many of you even watching maybe split and have different opinions on it for sure. And but anyway, we hope the idea of being able to unlock potential value in your existing property, or being able to see a property for the potential that it could have, and hopefully doing those things in a mindful way, and hopefully also our local and state officials can invest into infrastructure and build what needs to be built so that it can handle more people on the roads. That's just critically important as well.
Yeah.
And anyway, so Seth,
I want to add one thing to that.
Yeah.
Is I completely agree.
Mm-hmm.
And the product that example that I showed you of that 3-story building, when I designed that in my head, we had the option of making that rooftop deck, which the way they typically are, where each unit has its own rooftop deck. I am more of a proponent of making the entire rooftop a communal deck, because I think one of the things that we can be part of our new approach to housing is promoting community. And by promoting a rooftop deck as a community amenity, that will bring the people that live there together. And I think that is very important. I think connecting neighborhoods together is important in a lot of different ways. Socially, I think it's incredibly important, especially as we live in a world more and more where people are communicating through electronic devices. We're talking to each other, but we're not really together talking to each other. I don't think that's a good thing. So I believe in creating housing that promotes community, 100%.
All right, there you go, everybody. I hope you're able to hear Seth speak at the trade show on August 20th. And if you're out of the area, aren't able to make it, we will have those recorded. I know that we are selling the recordings from the last trade show, or some of them, not all of them, but I think about 8 of them. And it's $299 if you go to the forums order page. You can catch the audio version of everything from the last trade show. But going in person, definitely the big advantage is that you get to meet the vendors as well. There's going to be over 150 vendors there, and just their expertise, their ideas, and just keeping up with the industry. You'll want to come out for sure if you can. And anyway, thanks again, and we'll see you next week.
See you at the trade show. Renovise will be there too, by the way.
Right. All right. There we go.
They'll have a booth there. You can meet them.